Welcome back to the Labeled Podcast, the stories, rumors, and legends of Tooth and Nail Records. On this week's episode, we're going to be talking to the amazing and wonderful August Burns Red. This week's episode is sponsored by Harry's Razors. To get your free trial set, just go to harrys.com/labeled, harrys.com/labeled. And this week's episode is also sponsored by MeUndies. Get 20% off your first pair plus free shipping by going to MeUndies.com/labeled. That's MeUndies.com/labeled. So this week's episode is terrific, and I think you're really going to like it. Toby and Aaron and I were able to get together in Nashville and Skype with JB and Brent and Jake and Matt, who were in Pennsylvania. So you're going to be on your own to figure out who's talking, because I'm not going to interrupt the conversation to explain that, but you'll get the hang of it. And I'm not even going to take a ton of time to intro August Burns Red to you, because I know you know who they are and what they're about. But this is one of the coolest interviews they've ever done. They told us stuff that I don't think they've ever told anybody. We had a great time. And again, we'll just get right to it. Let's just jump in at you guys being like how your band got together. We don't have to do the whole biography here, but it seems remarkable to us as guys that had been on the label a long time that you guys just came out of nowhere, just flying under the radar until you were just this super real, serious band that had more fans than all of us and more momentum and more skill and more everything else. But I don't even really know how y'all came together out of rural Pennsylvania or stuff like that. So we got to start there.
I mean, the urban legend is like, Matt, you learned to play drums milking cows. Like you got the rhythm from the udder, and you were like, I'm on to something here, right?
Yeah, there's a real rhythm to that cow milking, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's pretty accurate, actually. I'll just start off with this, and then I'll let the other guys tell the facts here. But I literally just came in 7 minutes ago from chopping corn. So not a whole lot has changed in the last 15 years. And I like that. Because we had the luxury of the farm, of the Griner farm, we had space and we had an opportunity to practice and dedicate time to our craft in a way that a lot of other bands would have struggled to even have the opportunity to spend that much time practicing and working on our skills. Skill aside, it's a small town, and there's only so much to do because of the common denominator of progressive heavy music. It was a strong bond, and so any free time we had, we were locked in to talking about music, writing music, practicing music.
Toby, you didn't know they had a farm, actually. That was a
joke. I was totally joking. I didn't think you actually had a farm. Like that. I mean, I don't even know what it means to cut corn. Like, I don't even know what that means. I didn't know that was a thing.
You were trying to make some sort of Amish stereotype joke, right. And it turns out.
And here's what's crazy, though. You're talking about, like, I mean, how did y'all even decide to play such heavy music? Like, it seems like your family, your farm family couldn't have wanted that, right?
No.
They didn't think, oh, man, we're really wanting him to play, double bass pedals.
Yeah, tell us the bands you had found and stuff. What'd y'all get into?
I wasn't allowed to listen to music that wasn't quote-unquote Christian music. And I think my family was more conservative than the rest of you guys, if I can speak for all of us. And so I was only, really allowed to listen to this limited section of music. And so first bands were Project 86, Zao was the heaviest thing that I listened to, and Blindside, and Extol. And that was the beginning, all tooth and nail bands, solid state bands. And that was too heavy for my parents. But every time it got to the point where they were about to say, no way, shut it off, I'd say, here, read the lyrics or look at the label. And that was my free pass.
That's good. Hey, I got another one here. Did you tell me the story, or one of y'all told me the story one time about you bought your drum set from Jesse from Zao?
That was me. So I got a call from the drummer for Boy Wonder, which was they were kind of our idols locally. They were an awesome band, and we thought they were huge. They were big for Lancaster. But the drummer called me and said, "Hey, I know you're looking for a drum set. I know you love Zao. The drummer is a friend of mine. He's selling his kit, and he's in York, Pennsylvania." So I talked to my dad. I saved up some money, and my dad drove me out. I was 15 or 16. We drove our van out, and we met him in a parking lot. And I handed over $1,500 for a drum set that he told me was a Mapex Orion, which is, for all of you non-drummers or drummers, it's a top-of-the-line Mapex. Really nice kit. Here he had taken the badges off the drums, so there was no way to tell what kind of kit it was. It looked like it could have been what he said it was. In the end, I brought the kit home. I was fine with it. I felt like I probably paid too much. You know, the stands were broken, some of the cymbals were cracked, but the drums were the Orion series, right? About a year later, I was at a local drum shop across from Brent's house called Drums Etc. And I walk in, and on the showroom floor is my exact drum set for $750. And it's the Mapex M series. And I knew it was my kit, the kit Jesse sold me, because it was the same color. It was this burnt orange, really vintage, you know, kind of just a distinguished look. You can't mistake it for any other kit. And years and years and years later, I finally got to tell Brandon Ebel the story. And he ended up telling Jesse about this full circle. You know, August Burns Red got signed to Solid State, and here I am sitting with Brandon Ebel, the owner, telling him the story about how Jesse Smith sold a drum set for a lot of money. My dad, on the way home, said, "Man, that guy smells like marijuana."
You know, you guys kind of rode the wave of, or were pioneers in that part of taking your music so seriously that it's just very disciplined and practice and stuff like that. I remember seeing you guys and couldn't believe how much you put into practicing your instruments with metronomes and warming up and cooling down and practicing in your trailer and stuff like that. So I don't even want to call it athleticism, but the precision and focus you put on drums.
I call it nerd.
Yeah, I call it nerd. But do you tie that to actually the discipline of growing up on a farm and stuff like that?
I think so. Yeah, the work ethic. Yeah, I mean, the reason I love this style of music is because it's so challenging. I'm drawn to the challenge, and if I wasn't challenged by it anymore, I wouldn't like it. But I like it more than ever because I'm challenged by it.
Mm-hmm. And then, so how about JB? What was your age, and how did you become a nerd?
Well, I got my first guitar when I graduated high school, so I guess I would have been 17 or 18, probably 18. Yeah, I was 18 when I graduated in 2002. I bought an Ibanez starter kit, and this is embarrassing, but I'll tell it because it's funny now. I had this grandiose idea of learning how to play this song by the Get Up Kids called Out of Reach for my ex-girlfriend who we had recently broken up at the end of high school. And I wanted to impress her and get her back by learning how to play this Get Up Kids song and sing it for her, which is so embarrassing now. But I was interested in guitar anyway, so I bought a guitar.
Did you do it? Did you learn the song and play it for her?
I did learn the song. I never played it for her, thank God. But you know what? This is funny. I remember her coming to our EP release show, and after the show, she came up to me and said, you guys did so good or something. But that was a cool little, just kind of tied that whole thing up. I mean, I was over at the point, but it was so cool, that my high school girlfriend, was approving of my dumb band. You know,
you were happy to make her jealous. You thought, yeah. I mean, she missed out on the JB train.
Yeah, and yeah, exactly.
JB, we have her on the phone right now.
And she says that you have an 11-year-old.
Oh God.
So were y'all friends before, or did music bring you guys together? Did y'all meet in high school? I mean, what was it, Lancaster?
Lancaster, yeah. JB and I were buddies in high school, just through mutual friends that we had. We met Matt through more mutual friends. Alistair Peters would have been the reason that
our common friend.
Yeah, we became friends with Matt. It was a buddy named Alistair. And his parents just had this super sick house that was right in town, and they would let all the kids just come over to hang out. So we would go there and just chill, and we came up with this thing. It's called Steak Night. I have no idea why, but his parents would let us host this steak night at Alistair Peters' house where we would literally sit around and cook steak. And it got
it was once a week.
It was once a week. And then we would just hang out and cook steak. And it got to the point where it was so big that we literally had this, uninvite people. We, cut friends. Literally, we were just this guy can't come anymore. Sorry, steak night's too big now. But
there's too much steak.
Yeah, we met Matt through that. And then we all just started to play together. And then our original bassist, Jordan, and then our buddy John Hershey was original vocalist.
We were all Mannheim.
Yeah, we're all from the area, all from Mannheim. and we would just jam in Alistair's basement. We would play in Matt's parents' basement. But yeah, it was cool. And then obviously when those guys left and quit is when Jake sent me a message on, I forget, on
Probably MySpace.
it was MySpace, and we just started talking from there, and sent me over his first band, She Walks in Beauty's demo, or not demo, actual release, and then
Jake, an actual release?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
it had artwork and stuff. It wasn't just a demo.
Wow.
Yeah. So he came up to
A lot of time at Kinko's on that one, probably, right?
So we drug him up to Mannheim. He came to the farm, to Matt's farm, and first thing we did was throw him in a room, and we're like, yeah, just scream something. We just want to hear your voice.
Yeah, we just played a breakdown and made Jake just like ad-lib over
Improvise.
this breakdown, Jake.
Yeah.
He had just driven like 11 hours to get there. Literally pulls in, and we're like, let's go. You're trying out now.
Jake pulls in. He literally asked me, he goes, you think we can go get something to eat? And I'm like, nah, let's just do this now.
This won't take long. All right, guys, pardon the interruption, but I've got to tell you about Harry's razors. Let me tell you why they're so amazing. I used to think of shaving as just a chore. I never used any particularly good razors, and I thought it was just something you had to do and get through it. But now, thanks to Harry's, shaving to me is an absolute pleasure. It's something I enjoy, and so I think it's something that you would like a lot too. Now, let me tell you what they're all about. Harry's is all about a great shave at a fair price. And it doesn't matter if you're shaving your legs, your face, your beard, your top of your head, whatever you shave, Harry's is good for it. It was started by two guys named Jeff and Andy. They're just ordinary guys, and they were fed up with buying overpriced razors, so they started Harry's to fix shaving. And they did it. They fixed it. You're in good shape now. All you got to do is claim your free trial offer, and you'll see what I'm talking about, and you'll be with us and with everybody else on this one. In fact, over 3 million people have already done it. So you can claim your free trial offer today from Harry's, and it's a $13 value, and it's free when you sign up. You just cover shipping. Your free trial set includes a weighted ergonomic razor handle, 5 precision engineered blades with a lubricating strip and trimmer blade, rich lathering shave gel, and a travel blade cover. And you're going to love this. You're going to thank me when you get it. To get your free trial set, go to harrys.com/labeled right now. That's harrys.com/labeled. What made you get on that train of practicing and being so, proficient? Like that's what always strikes me about your band. It was this younger generation under us coming up was just so proficient, and I feel like you guys led that charge. Matt Greiner's that way on drums, and you guys are that way on guitar. Like, what were you doing to learn to play guitar that precisely and that much? Were you just practicing all the time, or where did that come from? There couldn't have been like a bunch of other good guitar players on the farms out there. I don't get that.
Well, we had the bands we listened to, like we really liked As I Lay Dying, and those guys would just shred. And then like Killswitch and all those bands.
Between the Buried and Me.
All those bands would just shred. And so we had all these guitar riffs that were
Following
written.
up As I Lay Dying with Killswitch isn't the best. I wouldn't say it in that order.
Yeah.
Stop.
Yeah.
Stop.
But yeah.
I'm just saying the order is a little uncomfortable.
Yeah. As I Lay Dying to Killswitch, and then Between the Buried and Me. Man, that's just,
All those bands. Wow.
Ooh, that's a good lineup. That is a lineup I'd like to see. So, how'd you guys get so technical?
How'd you get
bring it back.
so good at the guitar?
well, anyway, so we wrote, Thrill Seeker was written, and it was just filled with riffs that we couldn't really play. So we just we had to practice and practice and practice and practice. And even when we showed up to the studio, it was still man, we aren't that good at these riffs. So
Actually, hold on. Side note: Adam D said while he's recording us on Thrill Seeker that we were the second worst band he's ever recorded on guitar. With Every Time I Die being the worst band he's ever recorded on guitar. Yeah. Adam played a lot of riffs for us on Thrill Seeker because we were so lousy at guitar. He
Yeah, he's like, I can play this.
Wow.
He's like, I'm not going to sit here and listen to you play this over and over and over again. I do this a lot. Just give me the guitar. And we're like, all right. And so he would just play riffs, and then
And he'd nail him right
and
away.
he'd nail them. And then we were like, oh man, we got to get way better at our instrument. And so then we moved on, and with Messengers is when I think we actually really started to like sit down and practice a ton. And
So
play
y'all were
guitar a
practicing on
lot.
the road. That's the difference. And a lot of people is like, we would get in the, we practiced forever for our first record. And then we toured all the time. I never got out a guitar ever. And then we had to go back and, do the second record and stuff like that. But you must have, between Thrill Seeker and Messengers, just been like, that's what we saw. You guys practicing in your trailer every day. That's when I remember first seeing you guys at a festival, and you're just backstage playing double kick drum and practicing with a micro amp and just, all that stuff.
That's a good observation, but I think it stems from the fact that there was a time when we didn't feel comfortable going to play a show on the weekends without practicing the night before or that day. And so if we were on tour and we were about to play a fest and there was some downtime, we'd practice because it was habit. And so we would have a show on the weekend in 2003, 2004, and we'd practice Thursday night and Friday night, and sometimes even the day of the show. And so for me, at least, that carried over into playing out on tour. And so if we had time to practice before a show, yeah, it's what we did because that's what we had always done.
I've been playing in bands since 1997 when I was 14. I've not sat down by myself to practice since then. Once I found a band to be in, I was like, all right.
You practice before your band gets signed, and then you're done once you get
And then
signed,
I just kept joining bands.
I did it.
I practiced with the band,
Right.
but never by myself.
Yeah.
Why would I ever do that?
Well, the thing is with us is we always wrote material that was harder for us to play than it was too hard for us to play. So in order to play it live, we'd have to get better. And honestly, this is still like a common theme now. We're constantly writing stuff that is, like Matt was saying earlier, challenging. It's challenging to us now, and it forces us to continue to improve. So if we're not actively practicing, then we're just not able to perform our latest material. So it's just, we have to practice.
That style of music, though, that's where that athlete comparison comes in.
Yeah.
Like, you can't just go on tour and hope to nail metal music, right?
Seriously, like y'all, dexterity, muscle memory, all that stuff. Like you guys have to use that, right? Like, I mean, that's kind of a thing that makes you be able to pull off the music that you're pulling off.
Yeah, I mean, it's just constant repetition. You have to practice so much because if you think about your parts when you're playing this style of music while you're playing live, you're going to mess them up. Like, you're going to get in your head.
It's all muscle memory,
Yeah,
honestly.
It's going to get in your head, and if you start thinking about what you're playing while you're playing it, you're just going to mess up.
Well, how did you guys ever interface with Tooth and Nail in the first place?
Yeah, this is a good story, and I'm excited to tell this. We got signed to Tooth and Nail. Jonathan Dunn signed us. He was the A&R that discovered us. And the way he found us was through a website called hxcmp3.com. Well, we had recorded these 2 demos that were eventually re-recorded for Thrill Seeker. And that site was all about this chart system. Your songs got higher on the site if they were getting played often. So what we would do is we'd open Winamp and put in the links to our songs, and then just make a playlist of those 2 songs and play them over and over and over, like all night long on our own. Like in college, our college dorms, we would play our own songs.
You just loop them.
And it got us really high on the charts on hxcmp3.com, which is where Jonathan Dunn found us because our name was like towards the top of these charts. And he's like, who's this band? Never heard of them. We totally wouldn't have gotten those plays if we weren't playing our own songs.
Yeah.
But it's the reason that we got discovered. So it was totally a brilliant idea.
Yeah.
What year was that? It had been 2004 or what? 5?
2004, and then we signed in 2005.
Yep.
I remember that website. I remember waking up all the time. Who the hell is this August Burns Red? Keeps jumping over Ad Cities Burn every
really?
morning.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
I wake up every morning. August Burns, what? We were doing good. We were number 3. Now what? August Burns Red jumping ahead of us.
We were cheating. We cheated.
Making the contract and all that, was that exciting? Like, was that where y'all wanted to be, Solid State? Tell me about just what it felt like getting signed.
In my mind, Solid State was the label. They had the bands who were doing what I admired most about heavier music, and As Cities Burn being one of them. I love the artwork, I love the music, and I felt like if there was a label that was polished and putting out music that was on the forefront, they were doing something differently. Not just one or two bands. It seemed like every band was worth looking into. And so I remember saying to my bass player, Jordan, if there's a label that we could get signed to, can you imagine if it was Solid State Records? And it just felt like the perfect label, but it felt like it was out of reach for us. And so when we got signed, it was like, okay, we can stay here forever. This is the perfect label for this band.
We probably encountered you guys first at probably when Messengers came out, I guess. That's Jake. That's your first album, Messengers, right?
Yeah. Yep.
What was the first time? What's the first time you recall us meeting? It was some festival in California, if I recall correctly. Do y'all remember?
Yeah. Joy Fest in Santa Clara. Does that sound right?
You guys played in spacesuits.
So here's what sticks out to me is meeting you guys on that and then doing a tour or two together that we did in that era. It would have been between Messengers and Constellation. It would have been during Messengers for sure. But what was crazy is there was a new band that's on Solid State, and we heard the music, and it just sounded so insane. So I imagine these giant, tough guys that weigh 250 pounds and tattooed all up and muscles and long hair and beards and cut off sleeves that were just intimidating and partied hard and did drugs and were just these super crazy tough guys. And I met it, and it's just like JB wearing flip flops and cargo shorts. I mean, it's like not really what I was picturing for that band. The sound of it.
I never wore cargo shorts on stage. You guys are remembering it incorrectly.
Oh, okay. I remember I walked up to you one time. You pulled a screwdriver out of your cargo short pants.
Come on.
But you guys certainly don't have any of the other trappings of super heavy metal aggressive music. Looking at you guys, you just look like, regular guys, like normal.
We are regular guys playing heavy music. It's not about how we look, it's about how we sound.
Guys, please excuse this interruption, but you want to look good in your underwear and be comfortable, right? But that perfect balance is hard to find. So don't sacrifice style or comfort. You can check out MeUndies.com and you can find the best pair of underwear in the world. And I'm serious about that. The best underwear in the world. MeUndies will be the most comfortable pair of underwear that you will ever own. And it's made from this sustainably sourced natural fabric. And people don't believe me when I say this. This is actually a fact. It's 3 times softer than cotton. And I imagine the underwear you're wearing right now is cotton. And it's probably a little bit warmer than you'd like it to be. And it's probably just a little bit sweatier than you would like it to be. Well, MeUndies will fix it. They're the ultimate feel-good undies. That's for men and it's for women, and it's 100% satisfaction guarantee. They guarantee you will love your undies or you get your money back. So right now, MeUndies has an offer just for our listeners, and MeUndies is so sure that you'll love their underwear that even offer 100% satisfaction guarantee. If you order a pair and you don't love them, you get a full refund. That's a no-brainer. 20% off, free shipping with 100% satisfaction guarantee. What are you waiting for? To get your 20% off, free shipping, and 100% satisfaction guarantee, to get the best and softest underwear you will ever own, go to MeUndies.com/labeled. That's MeUndies.com/labeled. This is a limited time offer, so what are you waiting for? Go start wearing the best underwear of your life. Go to MeUndies.com/labeled right now. Well, why is that so? That, and along with just a lot of the other stuff about your style and the way that you run your business and your crew and the way that you traveled and were obsessed with like being really focused and being thinking about your finances and not traveling in a bus and just being these super focused, disciplined people is what stuck out to me, because especially in metal music, it's a lot of raging party people and tough guys. So how can y'all explain that? It's just kind of bizarre. Why is that all tied up with the rest of metal and not y'all?
Yeah, it seems like you guys are a type of band that like wants to play super heavy music and then go see a good rom-com.
Yeah.
Just nice guys, like oh, we're gonna get the popcorn deal at the movie theater. Like it doesn't seem like you guys are down to like really get wild.
That's Matt's favorite genre of movie, I think. But,
It might be.
but I mean, I think a lot of bands use like their band as an escape from like real life, and I think that's why a lot of people join bands. They're like, oh, if I play music, I'm just going to be able to party all the time. Like, you get that whole image just from right away with the whole like sex, drugs, and rock and roll thing. Like, you're like, that's what I want to be. But once you get like your first real paycheck from being in a band, you're just like, oh, okay, well, I guess you start taking this seriously because I can actually buy things I want now. So
Right.
I think that's kind of why we started, taking things a little bit more seriously as far as the business goes. It's just because we got lucky, and within a first like couple years, we were making enough money to support and sustain ourselves, and we never had debt as a band or anything like that. And so I think that's just why we took it as seriously as we did, because I bought a house and I damn well better be able to pay for it. So
Well, yeah, y'all were talking about buying houses from the very get-go as soon as you started making money, which was pretty early on, which is amazing, by the way. And I remember you guys playing after us, probably on the Under Oath tour, and we're in some bus and y'all are just in your van.
Yeah.
And it's because you were taking all that stuff really seriously. That really always stuck out to me.
But we were also on your bus all the time
Yeah,
because our van
that's right.
sucked. So we were just mooching on you guys.
But it does seem like you guys always had the that's what I think is kind of cool. I think you're exactly right, Brent. A lot of bands they think of it as it's our art and it's what we do and we're creators. And of course that is probably the most important part. But if you neglect the business side, like as soon as you are in the music business and touring, if you don't service that side, if you don't think about it, if you don't plan for it, then everything falls apart. And it seems like you guys realized that early on. Like, hey, I can remember talking to you guys. You're like, yeah, we're just going to hold off on a bus because that's expensive, and we want to save our money and do this. And I was like, holy shit, golly, these guys are nerds, and it's working amazing. It makes me really jealous. Where did that come from? Is that just small town stuff?
Yeah, that's just Lancaster County mentality. We come from a pretty like conservative area where people just work hard and save their money. My grandparents are a great example. I mean, they never spent money on anything, and I remember my mom saying like, your grandparents have like over $1 million saved, and I was like, what? Like, how's that even possible? Like, they don't buy anything, they don't spend money anywhere. I think that's just like part of the area that we came up in. People are cheap here. Let's be honest, we're cheap.
Okay, so y'all are out touring in Constellations and Messengers and all that time, and eventually you did move to a bus and stuff like that. But let's do some tour stories and stuff you do remember. Other bands have these wild stories about partying and drugs and crazy stuff like that. But what do you guys have?
Do y'all have anything that's really crazy, really wild? Have y'all ever gotten really? I mean, how much crazy sex stories does August Burns Red have on their tour bus?
I have a crazy story that doesn't involve sex, but it involves drinking. We used to have a rule, I guess, early on tour, like we had the no drinking on tour rule. This was before we kind of threw that rule to the wind. We had played a show in New Jersey probably in 2006, and I had just started drinking. I was 21, and I didn't have any experience drinking until I turned 21. And we went to a place to crash, some kid's house after the show. Yeah. And he was having a party, which is often how it goes. Oh yeah, you can crash at my place, and then you roll up and there's like 15 kids from the show, and there's a party going on. And I remember drinking from a bottle of Ouzo with this dude who I had just met. I didn't know him at all, but we were like just passing this bottle back and forth. And I got violently sick that night, and I was wrapped on the toilet like literally all night. I have like just flashes of memories of like dry heaving into this toilet. And I remember Jake coming in briefly at one point asking me how I was doing. I'm literally just like resting my head on the toilet waiting for like the next wave of vomiting. And apparently like I completely blacked out, and I was just like running around the party like chugging beers and passing beers out to people and stuff, which I have absolutely no recollection of at all. That was like the worst drinking night of my life. I've never gotten that drunk or sick from drinking like that before. That was like a good lesson learned.
So like the first time you really drank is exactly what your parents warned you about.
Yeah, that was what they were worried about.
Exact thing.
That's what
like
they
drank
were
too
worried
much,
about.
vomited, running around drinking everyone's beers, getting wild.
Bad experience.
Situation
So let's circle back. There's something else I want to talk about that, and that's being a Christian band, which you guys obviously are, were, whatever that part of it was. What did y'all do going in early? Was that part of the conservatism of your band is being a Christian band, where and it was everything's low key and you're not participating in all the other kind of stuff that the other metal bands in the scene would?
I think that when we first started, obviously, like, we looked at Solid State and as that label, and I know Matt had his parents who were like, yeah, we want you to listen to these bands, they're Christian bands, and that was what he was like allowed to listen to. But for me, I just thought that label was a great label. I love the bands, and sure, I grew up in a Christian home, but I think that early on, I mean, as far as like when we didn't want to drink or anything like that, that's just because when we grew up, like, I mean, that was just how it was. I had a lot of friends who were straight edge friends. I had a lot of friends who weren't, but like most of my friends didn't drink. I didn't drink till I was 21 either. And that was just because, I mean, I grew up with responsible parents and they wanted me to be a responsible person.
Did y'all think of y'all's band as like a ministry at all? Under Oath said stuff like that. We thought that about Emory, like, hey, we're out here for Christ. Did y'all ever think that kind of thing?
I don't know that we ever thought about actually being a ministry.
JB?
I'll say no, but we definitely wanted to be like a good influence. We were definitely like, we would pray on stage around the drum kit before we'd start our sets. We definitely weren't drinking in front of the audience because we wanted to be like a good influence. We didn't want to, drinking like with fans and stuff was like a big no.
Yeah. All right. How about Jake and Matt, who I find to be maybe the more conservative members of the band? How about you guys?
I mean, the first question that Brent asked me was if I was a Christian, So for me, it was always, the path that I wanted to take. So
Matt, give us your POV on being on the state of being a ministry or Christian band from the beginning.
Take the band out of the equation, and I think anybody who's 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, they're growing up, they're finding their identity, they're finding out who they are, sorting through it all. And we started the band at an early age, just like a lot of bands. But my goal initially was that we'd be a ministry, and how foolish of me, because you're in control of 4 other people's lives who are figuring that out for themselves. And so it wasn't until years into it that I realized I had to let go of my agenda for the band and make it a personal one instead of a blanket statement on all 5 guys, which was a lesson to be learned, But
did that ever cause tension? Like your faith in God, did you think other guys were letting you down or anything? Because I think that is a real, especially from a lot of tooth and nail bands, there's a real point of contention where some people think the other guys aren't being Christian enough or anything like that. Did you fall into that? Like, I want us to be a ministry and we're not there.
Yeah, there was a lot of that for me personally until 2006. We were in Florida and an incident happened where there were things that I didn't approve of.
Like what? What are you talking about? You got give us a couple details.
Did Brent get the wrong interpretation of Romans 8:28 again?
A precursor to it is that I was judgmental, and I'm very sorry for that because it wasn't right. But Jake was in the water with a girl, and people were getting drunk, and I just felt like things were out of control. Compared to, I was comparing everything to this standard. But the standard was when I was setting for other people when that's not the fair thing to do. And, every band that I've talked to that is set out to have an agenda as a 5-piece or 4-piece, that's a blanket statement on the band, runs into this tension. And it wasn't until 2012 when we had to define what the heck is the point of us being out here. And we finally accurately figured out it's not to preach the gospel and be, evangelical. And I think that was the accurate thing to do because, when we die and go to heaven, whatever happens next, I don't want to be facing God and him saying, how dare you use my name to further your career? I'd rather err on the side of safety and say, hey, we were genuine. We wanted to create really good music that helped people out. But that doesn't take away from the idea of, I play drums because I love it. And I think God gave it to me to give away. And so I think that's a better way of using the band than faking it or trying to be disingenuous about what we're doing.
What we've seen is really interesting, especially in doing this podcast and in our experiences. It comes up over and over again where there is a moment where a band has done it long enough and there's a coming of age and a time when you really I think of as maturity, not backsliding, basically.
Right.
And you guys referenced that, and I don't know this story at all, But you mentioned it about in 2012 when you had to, there's some conflict there, which I wasn't aware of that you guys even had. But it sounds like that really coming of age moment where you guys had to really assess what you are. And that seems to be the crux of a lot of people, interesting stuff with a lot of bands. And it seems to always happen for the bands that can persevere. They have to reach a new level of maturity. But tell us what you could tell us about that event in 2012.
It was when that was Invisible Children Company or whatever. They made that whole like Coney campaign thing. And we as a band, like I watched the video and I'm like, oh, cool. And I shared the video on our Facebook page, and we ended up getting some positive, but also a lot of negative feedback. And I looked into it some more. And this is something I just did by myself. I looked into it, and there was just a lot more to the story. There was a lot like, oh, if you're sending money to them, you could be funding something that's also terrible. And I had no idea. Matt had made a Coney sign. Jake held it up on stage, and we got booed. Like, the audience booed us.
This was a sold-out show in Sydney, Australia. To like 1,000 people. Like
a sold-out show in Sydney, Australia.
Bumming.
And Jake held up this sign, and the audience booed us. We came off stage, and I was like, we should have talked about this prior, and that just led into this whole conversation of, like...
we basically unearthed all of the elephants in the room.
All at once. Yeah.
Like,
from that one thing, it
spiraled. It spiraled into this big discussion that we talked about. Are we a Christian band or are we not a Christian band?
It almost broke the band up.
Yeah, it really did. It almost broke us up.
Yeah.
I thought we were breaking up. I wrote in my journal. I keep a tour journal, and I wrote in my journal that night. I'm sure I wrote like,
which isn't a nerd thing.
I'm just trying to document my memories, man.
Hardcore band member tour journal.
Yeah.
Hey, I just want to remember. Man.
You wrote in your journal what?
That I was almost certain we were going to be breaking up.
Yeah. It was just a brutal evening, but it was a conversation that needed to happen. Because like you said, there is that tension, like, okay, are we doing this? Like, what are we doing this for? And I think we had members who were like, I'm here to play music. And then there's a push, like Jake and Matt they were more on the ministry side, I think. And so we just kind of talking. It was like, and Jake was like, I'm not up here preaching every night. I don't think it's fair to call us a Christian band. Because to me, a Christian band would be on stage ministering. And we were all like, yeah, that's fair. Like, that's definitely a fair assumption, I think. So Jake was the one who was just like, I don't want to call us a Christian band if I'm not going to be up here being evangelical.
Well, and I think that Jake probably happily would have been evangelical if we were all on the same page about it, but we weren't all on the same page. I mean, we were kind of split.
Yeah.
So it didn't really make sense.
And I had some issues because we would say or act like, we weren't a ministry band or a Christian band, but then we would play these Christian festivals and make a crap ton of money. And it was like, for me, it was like, we can't do that. Like, we can't play the Christian festivals, but then not really be a Christian band. Like, I felt like we were kind of picking when we wanted to be Christian or not, and that was frustrating for me. And then I also didn't want to, because I did have feelings of saying something on stage about God or myself, my relationship with Jesus or anything, but I didn't want to say anything because I didn't want to say something that, JB would be like, hey man, I'm not, that's not what I'm here to do. Or I don't want, that I'm not backing that, you know what I mean? So it was something that definitely needed to be discussed. And then a bomb dropped between Brent and I. And
yeah, let's not talk about that.
Yeah. What was the bomb dropping? What was it?
Yeah.
What was the bomb, Jake?
He blatantly just outwardly told me that he didn't like a family member of mine.
Wait, what family member?
It's great. One of your great aunts, I bet.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's pretty difficult for someone to be in a band. I mean, for as long as we've been together. I mean, these guys are my family. These are my family members, and then for them to tell me that they don't like my wife
in Australia, right? After all this other stuff's going on, that comes out. Brent, what's your side of the story on that?
I mean, I think it's just I obviously did not want to say it, So Jake was pressing us on.
He wanted Chris on tour all the time.
He wanted his wife to come out on tour
Like-
for a really extended period.
It was a
while.
It was a 17-day
But
block
from Jake's
on
standpoint, he's
work.
like, "This is my wife."
Yeah,
Right.
so
Well, yeah. He said, "It's my wife. She's my family.
But everybody
I need
understands.
her. I need her
it's
here."
a new component to touring.
Obviously, yeah, but the problem was this is not going to go in a place where we can resolve this. And I was like, fine, whatever. I'm dropping the bomb. And I was like, look, man. I'm like, this is why we don't want this to happen.
And Jake, that had to make you immediately just angry.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, how'd you get through that?
In the immediate moment, Jake took it insanely well. He just goes, thank you for being honest, but I'm going to have to take a moment to process
That's
this.
amazing.
And he left.
Wow. That's
And
a
he
pretty
left.
amazing response.
Yeah, and then Jake and I found him sitting, and I talked to him for a while, and then we talked again for a long time the next day in a hotel in Australia, and just like kind of hashed everything out as far as like that situation went.
Yeah, but Jake didn't look at me for like a week, and I didn't even say it.
No, I actually, because there's a lot of things on stage that I do where I incorporate me moving over to JB or doing something to Brent or something to Dustin, and I just stone cold all of them. Just
Really?
stonewall.
Because I mean, you were
them.
pissed. I mean, for sure. I mean, understandably.
Yeah, I mean, for me to have just gotten married and for
Right.
me to basically be married to these guys, you know,
Right.
like,
Yeah, that's
I
right.
mean,
Yeah.
and they don't like each other. I mean, like, I'm in the middle of that.
Yeah.
And it doesn't feel good because, you know, I love both of them.
Right.
And I want them both to love each other. And I wanted, you know, there to be this camaraderie that just was not, it just didn't exist. And yeah, man, I was furious and I didn't know what to do. And obviously I had some resentment
Yeah.
towards them for a while, you know, for that. But, you know, and so a lot of things just happened all at once that night. And so that's why JB said, no, we're done.
Yeah.
This is
I
over.
would imagine I'd write that in my journal too. I mean, that's
Yeah.
a significant event, and I think you deserve a lot of credit for being able to take that as well as you
I
did.
know.
I really,
That's pretty
you
crazy.
may have single-handedly kept the band together that night by having an even temper, I would say.
I remember sitting on the balcony of our hotel with Jake after the show, and Jake, I don't know if you remember this, but alongside what JB said, I was ready to book my flight the next morning, and
gosh.
and I never said that, you know, to anyone else, but Jake was pretty much ready too, obviously, because I was grieving the loss of something. I felt like it was a loss.
So you decided not to be a Christian band that night, and you had a bunch of personal conflict. That was the outcome.
Right. And in this
that-
band, you know, because we're pretty conflict free, when it happens, it happens. And it
Yeah,
happens
like
all
hard.
at
Yeah.
once, and it happens. So I felt like I was grieving the loss of something that I had that I now lost, and Jake obviously was really hurt. And so we kind of just talked it out for a while, probably 2 hours. We were up really late, and we're like, no, we're not giving up. Like, we can still do this, you know. We're just gonna have to redefine how things work and, you know, work through it. But this podcast has shed some light on something that hasn't been talked about really since then, because of our conflict-free, you know, relationship, which is kind of you know, integral to us, you know, running like a machine. Things have to just work, and you can't dwell on stuff. But this podcast, this is some rare, you know, conversation right here.
Well, Brent and Jake, how were y'all able to move on? Because that's a powerful moment. It's a really heavy, hard moment where two friends have to move on from that because you're in just an amazing, also band, business relationship, all of that stuff. How were you able, Jake? How were you able to move on from that?
I mean, you
We
know,
talked for a long time, and even after that, it wasn't okay for a while.
yeah, it's still not okay. I quit.
Zing.
Well, it's amazing that you got past that, and I think everybody's really happy about it, especially the fans.
And Matt, sorry to interrupt you. Jake just texted me. Have you met Brent's wife? Oh my God! OMG!
But that strikes me because it's like you guys, Jake, use the analogy that you're married to not only your wife, but these guys too, but it's also the fans. I mean, I bet that's a big part of why you would stay together is because there's an actual relationship with these fans and stuff that was worth salvaging or getting through regardless of your band dynamics, marriage dynamics, stuff like that. So that had to be part of what got y'all through it.
Definitely.
So let's move through that. So you got through that, and then the most unbelievable thing of all to me is you become some band on Tooth and Nail and Solid State that just was just on a level that was like, again, it was quiet to some degree, and then all of a sudden everybody realized this is the biggest band that there could ever be, is what it seems like to us. And then on top of that, a Grammy?
Well, a nomination.
Tell us about that.
Well, we wrote a song called Identity. And it got nominated for Best Metal Performance. And then we didn't win.
Oh, you can't complain about that.
Who beat you?
A band from Europe called Ghost.
The Grammy nomination itself, though, is that like the biggest moment or the most validating thing or what?
Did that make your parents really happy?
Yeah.
I mean, you got
Yeah,
nominated
certainly
for a Grammy.
validated us to our friends and our family, especially our parents. I know our parents were extremely proud. I mean, that was a cool thing for them to be able to say to their friends and stuff like, oh yeah, my son's band was nominated for a Grammy. Everyone knows what a Grammy is.
Yeah.
So it kind of made it real for, all their church friends.
No, if it had been a Dove Award, you would have
We
killed.
were nominated for a Dove Award.
We were nominated for a Dove Award.
And we didn't
And
win
you
that
still
either.
didn't win.
No.
You still didn't win?
No.
Okay, so let's just talk about the future real quick while we still got you guys here. You have a new album called Phantom Anthem that comes out this year.
Yeah, it comes out on October 6th.
And so what's the future for you guys? I mean, are you locked in? Are you winding down? Or are you ramping up for phase two?
Is
Like,
this an acoustic record?
Yeah.
Have y'all gone 90s
Dude,
rock? What's it
we
sound
are
like?
locked in more so than ever. The record is the complete opposite of acoustic. It's super heavy hitting. I think people are actually, some early reviews I've seen have kind of called it like a return to our older sound a little bit.
Yeah.
Super
Very
heavy,
cool.
aggressive album, really technical. It shreds more than any of our other records have. And we're definitely planning on touring the record hard. We're not slowing down. We're continuing the path that we've been on for the last decade plus.
so you guys think you can do another 10 years? You don't care. You'll keep on
20
going.
years.
You've accomplished so much already. And it's true that Brent and JB, you guys are just doing all the business and even managing the band at this point too.
Yeah, we're self-managed now.
Yep.
That's amazing. And I do want to give a shout out to your crew that you've had. I don't know if you still have everybody, but you guys have been able to manage to keep the same crew guys for at least most of your career.
Yeah,
Which
we've
is
had
awesome. Extremely.
We've had
notable.
the same tour manager forever. We've
Yeah.
never had a different tour manager.
His name's Josh.
Yeah, Josh Bowman. Shout out to Josh. Thanks for all your
He's
years
able to
of
do
service.
it. Yeah. He's old money, but
Yeah.
so he's able to tour.
He's old money.
That's how he does it. But yeah, that guy's cool.
You guys are great. It's been really good to catch up. Thank you for
Yeah, for
sharing
sure.
some details with us that I know you haven't shared
Yeah,
anywhere
that's
else. I mean,
awesome,
I haven't
guys.
checked, but I'm sure that some of this is pretty exclusive stuff. So we
Yeah.
appreciate it very much.
Absolutely.
Really do.
Thank you guys for having us. You guys run a podcast that actually has credibility, and you guys make awesome music too. Seriously, my top 25 on iTunes is still As Cities Burn and some Emery too. I mean, As Cities Burn is one of my favorite bands of all time. So thank you guys for what you guys have contributed too. It's been very influential.
But you can play all those drum parts with your left foot, though.
Yeah. You don't even. It's not even hard. Like it just is. He could be milking cows, getting and collecting eggs, and playing all the As Cities Burn drum parts.
I appreciate it, guys.
Yeah, thank you guys so much.
Yeah.
All right, my name is Matt Carter. I do the show along with Toby Morrell and Aaron Lunsford. This episode's also produced, edited, and mixed by Melanie Studley. Assistant producers Marshall Fremeth, Reva Hansen, and Tyson Paletti. Special thanks to Adam Scatula from Tooth and Nail for helping to develop the show. All right, see you soon.